Hello, and welcome to the mentorDINO podcast. I'm your host, Katelyn Rossier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. Join me each week as I speak with amazing professionals in and around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, as we are all part of a larger interconnected community. We discuss everything from career stories, lessons learned, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, welcome to the conversation. And if you like this episode, please do me a favor by hitting subscribe, like, or share it with a friend. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own unique career journey. On this episode of the mentorDINO podcast, I want to talk about marketing and marketing for architects. So I'm going to show you a few professionals that we talk about marketing throughout their career, and we're going to hit different lenses with it between the traditional marketing you're likely thinking of with proposals and trying to win work that is evolving so much of our time as firm owners and team leads just trying to bring in new work. But I also want to dive into websites, your actual branding for the firm, and all the other different aspects of marketing. So I pulled together 3 guests for this episode to go through different aspects of marketing. So the first one I want to introduce you to was episode number 67, Nikita Morell. She is out of Australia and she likes advocating she is not an architect, and that is a good thing for you. She helps firm owners with their website copy. And for anyone who doesn't know marketing, I did not understand a lot of the marketing language until I got into mentorDINO, understanding social media and everything. So the website copy is literally the words on your website, to make it very simple. And as much as we want our renderings, photos to really showcase who we are, really the copy is what can reel in the clients. And taking different approaches and understanding what SEO stands for from a marketing standpoint to make sure that your website is not talking to other architects, but is talking to owners that can get you the work. So you need to make sure what your website is and what it's doing. So we talk about how for large firms, your website's pretty much used as a recruitment tool. So the marketing side is a little bit more of a recruiting edge to it. Whereas all other firms that aren't the giant firms are really using their websites to introduce owners to your firm and what you do, what your mission is, and to get the ball rolling in a conversation to let them know who you are and what you stand for. So enough of me talking. I want to jump over to Nikita and let her explain it to you. So again, this was number 67 with Nikita Morell, if you want to check out the full episode.
A lot of these smaller firms even were struggling. They didn't have the budget to hire a marketing manager, or they didn't even have the time resources to invest in this. But I was looking at other industries like, software companies and that, and they just felt so much more ahead of the game than architects in terms of marketing and communication. So I thought, I don't know, I took it upon me as my mission and just thought architects by nature, I don't know if I'm wrong saying this, but are visual creatures. So I thought, well, I'd love to educate them on why words matter. So yeah.
Yeah. And when did you start? I forget how long you've been going.
It was 9 years ago now. So yeah.
Feeling like a lifetime, but yesterday.
Yeah. And it was one of those funny things where I wasn't even kind of like moonlighting, like I wasn't doing it on the side. I'm working at this firm. It was just like kind of, I quit and was just like, well, there's no plan B. I'm doing this. So that was kind of how it happened.
Yeah. And then how have you branched out? Because I know you help firms all across the globe. So what was that like, going from, I don't know if you expected to just help firms in Australia, or how did that growth occur?
Yeah. So, in a few ways, I think firstly, it started with this kind of mindset of, as I said before, I wanted to help firms of all different sizes. So to do that, I couldn't just be offering website copywriting, because that sometimes costs, up to 10 grand. And some of the smaller firms, the solo practitioners, just don't have that. So I kind of structured my services in almost like tiers. So I've got do-it-yourself toolkits I've created. It's called the Architects Workshops. That sits on my website, and it's just toolkits to show architects step by step how to do that. And, for a few $100s, they can get access to those resources. Then I had a middle tier, which is called Site Smart, where I take a group of architects through the writing process, and we kind of do it together, and they get an opportunity to send in their words, and I edit it. So I run that program twice a year. And then, of course, the services where I just take it all off your plate and do it for you. So I feel like it was that kind of like tiered approach that helped me branch out wider. And in terms of your question, in terms of global, it's interesting. Like, there's different cultural differences, I would say, between Australian architects and American architects, and the ones in Europe. And I am part of a lot of copywriting groups that are based in America, and I did feel that perhaps just my personal brand was very much, I guess, the American audience responded to it quite well. So I started dealing with Americans, and then slowly by slowly, I've had clients in all parts of the world now, Spain and Dubai, and it keeps it fun for me as well, I think.
Yeah. Do you see any like common threads? Because I know a lot of your newsletters that I see and your copy on LinkedIn are all very similar in terms of architects not understanding how to speak to normal humans, as I like to say, so the non-architects, because we learn so much archi speak and, talking internally, that when you're talking to a client that may have no idea what I'm talking about with putting a building together and all of that content, do you see a common thread across countries in that education?
Definitely. And I think you've just nailed it. Like, when it comes to that common thread, I think it does stem from kind of that academia, like just how you're taught architecture doesn't necessarily translate into, or how you're taught to communicate architecture in school is not necessarily translated to how you communicate architecture to the layman. And even just selling, I feel that a lot of architects just don't either like selling, or they find it a bit dirty, or they just don't know how to get their services out there. But as I say, sometimes your architecture really is only as good as your clients. So you want to be getting those clients through the door and attracting those ones that are a better fit for you. And you can do that with your words and your visuals. But so I think that common thread definitely is the education of architecture.
Yeah, and it takes both, because, you need some visuals for other people to understand it. But if your words are confusing, then it just leads the client down a question mark to, okay, can you actually help me with what I'm talking about? Or I know I've interviewed some architects that have started their own business, and they say, don't seem so scary, because it can be scary for a client that's never built a project to reach out to you.
Exactly.
But and then I know you mentioned your different services. How did you decide to do the Site Smart group? Because that's kind of that middle tier between creating digital content and the full services of just you.
Yeah, it's a good question. So one thing I always do is I'm always going out asking architects like how I can do things better, and what, like, I just want to be as helpful as I can, really.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found was, with these toolkits that were sitting on my website, a lot of architects were purchasing them, they're working through them, and then a deadline came up, or they got stuck with a certain thing and they kind of either didn't finish it, or it was just I mean, I guess everyone has different ways they approach projects like this, but one thing I think it lacked was that accountability, also that kind of being on the journey with other architects to bounce ideas up with. So that's why I founded Site Smart. So it goes for 6 weeks. We have a call every week where the group turns up. I'm an open book. I share different examples and resources. I edit their words, but they're essentially writing it with me, and it's like they have my full attention for the 6 weeks. And my guarantee to them is, by the end of those 6 weeks, you'll have, I would say, 90% of your website copy done and dusted. So, it's just a more affordable way to get my help.
Yeah. Are there like a top 3 tips you're always providing people along the way? Like, I'm not sure if there's very similar things since we're more visual and not taught how to speak to non-architects sometimes, if there's really simple things you would suggest.
Yeah, so I guess one thing I'm always saying is, instead of saying, like, from a copywriting perspective, instead of always saying our clients, we help our clients do X, Y, Z, you want to be talking directly to your ideal client on your website or whatever, whether you're writing a capability statement, whatever it is. So instead of it saying our clients, write you, we help you, or, it just is that tiny shift from our clients to you that breaks down that barrier. And all of a sudden, the reader, or whoever's sitting there reading that, is thinking, oh, they're talking to me. And then I guess another tip is, when it comes to writing your project descriptions, I always say, when you're writing about your projects, try and move beyond what you can see in the image. Talk about things like, what you can hear, what you can feel, what, smells. Like, just think of the different, like, try and weave two senses in. And by doing that, you create almost, well, I like to think of a word painting. So you're bringing your ideal client into the space, because a lot of the time they physically can't walk around your projects. So I guess it helps transport them and they feel like they can, they're there. And let me think. Third tip, I would say be specific. And that's just a golden rule of copywriting. If you're going to say we're a firm that's passionate about design, that's great. We'd hope you are. But like, what else? Like, be specific. Like, what are you passionate about? Talk in specifics. Like, we say, oh, the client was happy, ended with a good result. What result?
What result?
Like, so I think it's really, when you're going to talk about innovation, creativity, all these big generic, big words, break it down and try and, be specific. So hopefully there are 3 good tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel the be specific is a little bit almost easier for smaller firms, because a lot like how you always have to niche down when you start your own business. So for you niche down to architects, but for a small business firm owner, they can't do all the project types, especially if they're a solopreneur or have a very small staff. So they have to niche down to a project type. So I think that's really helpful on getting specific with your words, just like you would a market type you go after.
Exactly. Yeah.
Welcome back. And this time we're going to jump into the traditional proposals that you're thinking of. And I want to introduce you to episode number 17 with Alyce Anderson. She was actually on the construction side and was a superintendent to start out her career, and has shifted over to helping marketing teams. So a lot of the times you get that influx of work. All of a sudden there's a boatload of proposals coming in that you only saw half of them coming down the runway, but you really are excited about the other half. And sometimes that can be a real strain on your marketing team, especially if it's only one person, maybe two, putting the information together. So Alyce created her own firm to help with that process. So when you've got that influx of work, her team can come in and help you out. They can also help you streamline your marketing process. It can be really hard, especially with new marketing professionals, to really understand the project work that's come in, the lessons learned behind it. So she also talks about structuring your information, so then it makes it faster to put together a proposal and grab those key stories that really align with the project. So this one was from number 17 with Alyce Anderson, and we'll jump over to her clip. Your education's more on the construction side. Is Donna's straight marketing?
Straight marketing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I've always wondered how marketing students figure out marketing within AEC firms, because I feel it's pretty detached and you almost need to have that technical eye. Or one of my friends is a marketer now, but her education for her bachelor's degree is actually interior design. So she has at least an interior design background and then went into marketing, which tends to give her a little bit more of a ease in understanding the designs and being able to communicate it. So just curious how marketing professionals discover this part of the industry.
I find that the individuals who do really well in marketing in AEC, if they had a marketing background, they are actually very project management oriented. So, you have your marketers that are full on creatives. They want to sit down, they want to design stuff, they want to create campaigns that have quirky, fun messages and all of that, which you can do in AEC to a certain extent. But I think that the marketers that really succeed in the AEC side come in with a project management mindset, because it is one, proposals are so involved. You have to understand getting a draft redlining. You have to understand budgets and schedules. You have to understand timelines and deadlines. You have to kind of strip yourself of any pride in your design work, because
You have a
whatever.
bunch of designers staring at it.
Yes, exactly. It's just like in architecture, they teach you to redline the heck out of everything. Like, no design is perfect, nothing is perfect. And I do think in marketing, a lot of times marketing has this just come up with creative ideas. And well, yes, you do that in AEC. You also have to be very project management oriented and very timely and very detailed. Very detailed. You have to have a good idea of grammar. You have to also be able to, when you're reading your work, I think it's also very helpful when someone who is a marketing background comes into AEC and they'll read a proposal, or they'll even read a white paper or anything, and they put it down. They're like, I have no idea what this says. Well, that's a problem. That's an
Yep.
issue, because a lot of owners don't have, a lot of people that you're trying to sell to don't have the technical background. A lot of them do, but a lot don't. And so I think that first I've just noticed, and I think Donna and Carrie on my team are two prime examples of project management oriented people. They are organized, detailed, quick, and very meticulous with their steps and their processes in getting stuff done. And the beauty in what we've been doing in having those individuals run as our project managers and getting things done, we've been able to appreciate the creative side a little bit more. And, I want to put this delicately. You can appreciate the creative side a little bit more when you don't have as many technical people in the company. And that's something sometimes we struggle with in-house, primarily on the contractor side, not so much with architectural, but I say the contractor side, but also we work in renewable energy. We work in transportation. Sometimes, when you try to get a little creative with a pretty straightforward technical field, it can get stifled. The nice thing with us is people do come to us as a third party to just explore that creativity a bit more. So we have a couple graphic designers on staff that have more, they can push it a little bit. And they work with the project management oriented minds to add, a really cool graph that tells a story instead of 8 paragraphs explaining it. So we really try to push the visual education and the visual marketing as much as possible in this very technical world, because that's the best way the laymen or outside folks understand it.
Yeah, and the proposals can get pretty big, especially if you're going after airports. Like, they are massive. And when an owner's trying to read through everything, it's very unlikely that they're actually reading word for word. So if something can be illustrated as a graphic and then them go to some words to understand it more, that's a quicker way to get your point across, and just that you can communicate in different ways.
100%. So. And I would even say one thing that, where AI is playing a big role in what we do these days. Embrace it or get out of the business, because it's here, it's here to stay, especially with marketing. And our team's been training a ton on AI, and we could easily, I'll be the first to tell you, we could easily go into every proposal question and generate an AI answer. Still, the same rules apply. No one's going to go read novel after novel. So we have to have really creative people who, if we show them a paragraph and we read it to them and we go, how can we show this instead of say it? They come up with those sort of ideas. So, it's funny you say that with the industry background. It definitely helps that I have an industry background. 100%. That project management mindset paired with the true creative, and they're very different ways of thinking. They have to come together, and they're most often two different people. That's kind of the secret sauce for a successful collaboration, because a proposal takes up way more than one type of marketing mind. And real quick, kind of what you said, it can get really big. The toughest proposals, the toughest marketing and campaigns in general are the collaborative ones where you have like 5 team members. So let's say you have an architecture firm, 2 engineering firms, a contractor, a smaller local contractor, and a consultant. All of them are coming in for one proposal. That's 7 opinions on a 100-page document, or 7 opinions on a joint venture brand or letterhead. So I think
different styles of how they lay it out. I've seen just, we'll get engineers in that we're consulting with, and their style of how they lay out a proposal is drastically different. And you want to look like one team, even though you're bringing together multiple businesses. So it's like, okay, what works for the design so you don't look like, hey, we just got this and slapped it in, and you can tell it's somebody else's stuff. We want to come together as one.
Yeah. And when done well, a proposal that, and I keep saying a proposal, it's reflected, like joint ventures require more than just a proposal to be branded to show a collaborative idea. But if your design package is disjointed down to your engineers and your architects all have different, formats to put their drawings in, it looks like, okay, did you guys even get in the same room and talk?
Yeah.
And it looks messy. It's not cohesive. So what does that say about the relationship too? So marketing for AEC is really, it's how can we make them all collectively look like they have this one cohesive idea in this proposal, in these documents, in this letterhead. And that gets really tricky. And there's always going to be one more difficult team member that their opinion or no way. And that's where that project management person comes in again, because a good project manager isn't just organized. They know how to negotiate. They know how to speak to difficult people. They know how to compromise. They know how to come up with solutions that will make maybe not everyone happy, but that will work across the board. And that's probably, in my book, the biggest success indicator of someone who can market in AEC. So,
yeah, definitely with seeing marketing and seeing proposals come together, and oftentimes you don't have a lot of time to put them together. Do you have any advice for anybody, either internally or externally, working with all these entities to gather the information? I know as a consultant, you don't have the luxury of knowing all the firm's past projects. So there is a lot more digging you have to do to figure out those stories and entities. Do you have any advice for getting everybody on one page and moving forward?
Sure. Gosh, I have a lot of advice on that. I would say, I think, first of all, when you pick representatives in any company to go work with a marketing team, whether they're in-house or a third party out of house. And I struggle sometimes because I will be the first to admit to you, my life as a third party is a lot easier than it was when I was in-house. And that is the blunt truth, because executives and people paying me as a third party care more about what I have to say in my direction than they did when I was in-house. And I'm not saying, I have some wonderful mentors. I worked with some great people in-house. But prioritize your marketing team's needs, because it can get very frustrating. First of all, there's a good chance your marketing team isn't compensated the same as your technical people. They probably don't get the same notoriety, the same, I don't want to say respect because I always felt respected, but they're looked at a little bit differently. They're not, they're overhead. They're looked at as,
that's what I was going to say. They're not billable.
yeah.
So then
not,
oftentimes, like,
Yep.
I'm more on the architecture side. If they're not
in the construction,
but on the architect side, since I'm an architect and mainly worked in architecture firms, if they knew what to do with you if you were an architect, it gets blurry sometimes with the interior designers. And then the second you're in more of a non-billable role, whether it be administration, accounting, marketing, architects aren't taught all of that business side and how important those are for the whole business to come together. You need those billable professionals. But because we aren't trained necessarily always on the business side, I think architects struggle with that entity and that value because they don't see it as bill. I haven't worked, but I don't know.
You nailed it. Same thing. It really is. And it's to no one's fault. It's just the way it's like, I think that when you go to college, you get a degree in marketing, you come out and you do marketing in AEC, there is this one point in a lot of our marketing folks' life that they feel, I feel like I'm a little bit administrative more than a marketer. And Lord knows we couldn't do anything without administration support. It's still kind of aligned with that skill set. And marketers are trained to be strategic thinkers. They're trained to be creative. So when you are working with a marketing team, understand that even if they're in-house, they're not there to just like collect your stuff and make it look pretty. Bring them into the hard conversations, bring them into the go, no go. I can't tell you how frustrating. I have a couple, oh my gosh, if my boss hears this, he's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe she admitted that. But I remember just getting so pissed off one day that there was this potential project that the company was going to chase. And nobody said, yeah, let's go for it or let's not go for it. I was never brought in the discussion. So immediately we all assumed we're not going for it. They would have told us by now. And then 5 days before it was due, it was like, oh, okay, actually, we're going to go for it.
All right. And then the final person I want to reintroduce you to was episode number 32 with Liz Sydnor. She is an architect and she's licensed, been working in a firm and realizing that she wanted to pivot her career. She wanted to make a change. She wanted to have a little bit more control on what she was doing day to day, but loves the graphic components of design. And so she had pivoted her career into a multidisciplinary firm. And so she owns her own business and she helps with marketing, branding, and fixing all of your branding that you're looking for your firm. So she's gone through and shown how to do different things with your business cards to align with your vision and mission of your firm. She also does website design. So, as much as Nikita does the words, Liz does the graphics. So, you could create the all star team between those two guests to bring together a website to really revamp everything. So, Liz also specializes in website design and can rebrand your firm in terms of a full rebrand refresh to make sure that you are aligned with where you're taking your career, if there are different types of project types you want to focus on, and what that messaging is for clients. So, without further ado, let's jump over to Liz's clip. And again, she was number episode 32 if you want to learn more about her story and pivoting over into a marketing multidisciplinary type of firm.
I think it's important to just try, different experiences and see, what really gets you excited about the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And then going with kind of leading into the struggles you had learning to be remote rather than in the office with everybody, what made you decide to open up your own business and tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that business, because I know a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think having that distance a little bit and working remotely and kind of spending a lot of time with myself, it was a very reflective moment for me. Um, and I realized I was in denial about it for probably too long, but I was experiencing that big word that we hear about, which is burnout. Um, and, my body was kind of screaming at me like, Liz, like, you need to slow down. Um, I think a lot of things contributed to that burnout. But I think the most common denominator was just me and my belief in that, doing more is what brings me value. And so I poured myself into school, into work, organizations outside of work. And I was just kind of working at a pace that wasn't sustainable. And, from feedback I've been getting, I don't think this is unique to architects and to creative fields. And so, my body was telling me, like, Liz, I think it's time to try something else. What you're doing right now isn't quite working. And so I thought, okay, if I'm working on architectural projects, there's a part of it that, making buildings is hard. Like, just all around, it's a difficult process. Enjoyable for sure. And, I absolutely loved parts of it. And that's why I did it for a while. But I kind of thought, okay, the timeline of projects, it's hard because I'd work on a project for 2 to 3 years and you don't really get that satisfaction of like all of this hard work you pour into a project. And then, you have maybe a little celebratory moment and that's that satisfaction. And then it's on to the next, right? And what attracted me to other disciplines of design was just a different timeline. So like graphic design, you can get a project, really experiment very quickly with those design elements and just have a quicker turnaround. So it's a lot more gratifying, I find, in the projects I'm working on now, where the timeline is much shorter. I can really experiment more creatively with those projects versus an architectural project. And do I miss architectural projects? For sure. Like, I really miss the complexity. And I hope to do architectural projects in the future again. But right now, I think, I wanted to try something different. So that's what kind of, that's why Sydnor Design was born. It was kind of out of that necessity of like, okay, I need to take care of myself. I need to do this in a way where I can work on creative endeavors that I've been thinking about, but haven't really had the time and the space to explore those things since I was working full time in architecture. So that kind of gave me the freedom and the independence to do something different.
Yeah, and that kind of this, I call it the snowball effect or the avalanche that we tend to find for any design field. Like, you could stumble back into burnout with graphic design too, but
absolutely.
It's like, okay, you get really excited. It's like, you're playing in the snow and you're having a lot of fun, and then you're like, okay, I can do this. And then all of a sudden, like, one extra hard week turns into 2 extra hard weeks, which turns into 3, and then months, and then for some professionals it turns into years.
Yes.
Until they hit that wall. And sometimes it's a medical issue is the wall that like stops you, or just mentally exhausted. I know I hit medical issues on my end when I hit my burnout wall, that I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And it's not till you talk to somebody outside of a design field that they're like, what are you doing? Well, like, back off, relax. Like, you're stretching yourself too thin. But I feel like design professionals, like, you're always trying to do more to have a bigger impact or do something different. Or we really care about our clients and what we're working on. And that care and passion can just lead to extra work. So you're
Totally.
definitely not the only one.
Yeah, yeah. Um, no, I totally agree with that. That resonates so deeply. And um, I love this quote. It's like my motto for this year. It's doing more doesn't make you a better person, it makes you a tired person. And that's from Courtney Carver. She was the starter of the 333 project, which is a minimal fashion project. But I love her Instagram account. She's always talking about doing less can be better in all aspects of your life. And that's the thing I remind myself, when I get excited and, I'm a driven person. And I want to help people. I want to do all the things. But you have to kind of pace yourself and, and tell yourself doing more doesn't necessarily mean better.
Yeah, it's always the quality versus quantity. But then I guess it's like, if you think of time wise, it's quality of your time and effort on what you're putting in, I guess,
Yes.
more than the amount of time you're putting into something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, um, starting out your career and like you said, the snowball effect, like until you kind of hit those points where it's too much or, something isn't working for you, like just to reevaluate and to think, okay, focused work works the hardest. And when you're spreading yourself too thin to too many things, it's not productive at the end of the day, even though that's what your goal is. So you're trying to be the most productive possible. So yeah.
Yeah. And I know you do more graphic design. So what type of projects are you working on within the graphic design realm?
Yeah. So I focus on graphic design and branding, and right now the first projects I worked on, I did a branding refresh for a local architecture firm. And that was really cool because it was looking at a brand uh, that already existed and kind of stepping back and looking at, what they wanted to keep, what they wanted to change, what their vision was moving forward, and if what they had was still working for them. So I really enjoyed that project and working with fellow architects and creatives, and learning about, their process. And I thought that was really valuable for me too, to get insight into that. So a branding refresh. I also did a website design for a close friend of mine, and new branding established for her as well. She's a dancer and fitness instructor. And that was a lot of fun to work on. I also do social media management. So taking branding into the social media realm has been a lot of fun, and learning more about that. That's been a big interest of mine for a long time. So it's really nice to really spend that time learning about that part of the industry.
Yeah, and you get to do different things. I think like you talked
Yeah.
about the struggle in architecture is just you're on a project and it can be years before that
Hmm.
project's complete. And maybe you're working on multiple projects and they have different timelines, but they're all years rather
Right.
than like a website's probably going to take you a while to go through and hash out details and how it all works. But social media can be a really quick engagement testing out things. And so there's even different speeds within graphic design, but they're all still a lot quicker than architecture, which can be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it is. And, I think that's what's great is there's just an element of like just being experimental with things. And even starting my own social media account for my business. And I mean, because you run yours too,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you kind of put an idea out there, and, it's okay if not every post or, piece of content is a home run, but what's cool about it is you test that and figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
and see what people resonate with.
Yeah, you fail fast and hard, but you don't have to worry about like it being costly on the job site for making
Yeah.
a failure on it. It's like, okay, throw it out. I know it's kind of weird being since I'm kind of in two boats, I have fun on the social media side, like you're having with the graphic design, which is a whole nother empowering tool of design itself and pulling together color schemes, or I play with the little dinosaur guy on like how I can use him in different ways. But like the fun nature of like rapid iteration or testing out different things, and it's like throwing a dart and seeing what sticks. And then, but I also still have the architecture arm that I'm doing that's like the long lead. So it's like this weird, like emotional design dynamic that I've been doing for like a year now, that I kind of see both sides. And, you know, it's juggling to keep up, but I can definitely see the appeal of graphic design and doing websites and everything, and how that the education that architecture gives you allows you so many more paths than just the architecture industry alone.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the wonderful thing about having an education in architecture is it really is so much more extensive than I think what people think about, like, or not think about, but their expectations are. You know, you study history of architecture, you study theory, like the philosophy behind these things. You study how to build walls, like, and not get water in the wrong places. Like, I mean, the breadth of just like what you're studying and what you're learning, I think is a wonderful education, and you can take it, you know, in many different directions. So I think that's what I've been really grateful for too.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but when I was in school, it was very much like, this is the path, and you want to go be a licensed architect, so this is what you can do, and you can go build houses. And the different ways you can take your career path is like small, large firm, design or technical, or a type of architecture. And they only barely touched on like, hey, you could be a real estate developer. But then that was really it. And I'm like, that's it? Like, you know, in school, I was too headstrong of I want to be an architect and I want to do this. So, like, it didn't matter to me. But I know my other classmates that were like, I'm not sure if becoming an architect's right for me. Is this education even worth it to me? Should I quit after 3 years and not get my undergrad? Like, there were so many conversations that's like, no, just finish the degree, because architecture is still so important of an education, and you don't have to do the defined path that they kind of script for you.
Totally. And like, I was definitely on that path, like 110%. Like, I'm going to be an architect. I mean, I'm a licensed architect. I carried that path through. And, you know, I had that belief through for a very long time, that was the only way to go. But I don't really know what made me question that anymore. Like, you know, I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, wow, you know, what made me make the leap? Maybe delusion. I don't know. A happy delusion. But no, I think it's really cool that you definitely have the option to go into other careers, or be a successful architect from that education.
Yeah, and I know a lot of professionals that I talk to that are debating on pivoting their career, or currently in the middle of pivoting their career into something else, have had a large struggle with it, just because it was so much, you know, you want to be an architect and do this, and pivoting's like, oh my gosh, I'm giving up my life, or I feel like I failed because I'm pivoting. Were there any particular struggles for you as you were trying to make that decision to pivot? Or was the burnout strong enough that you're like, I just can't?
No, there was definitely those thoughts, you know, coming in strong for a while. Like, it took me months and like a lot of thinking to come to the conclusion. No, there were thoughts of like, yeah, exactly what you're saying of, oh, you know, I kind of failed at this. Like, I failed at architecture because I'm not practicing architecture every day and doing those types of projects. You know, so I think that was hard to get over, and I'm still kind of getting over that a little bit. of having a bit of an identity crisis. You know, even even on my website, it's like, oh, I wanted to portray I am an architect, but I do all these other things. And so I try to say, like, yes, I am an architect, but I also am an advocate, especially for women in design and architecture. I am an author. I'm writing a book now. I am a storyteller. I enjoy telling my story to inspire others to tell their stories. And so it's like, you can be an architect, but you can also be all these other things too.
Yeah, you can definitely multitask and figure out what you're doing. I didn't want to lead into it ahead of the question, but I know the professionals that I know that have pivoted their career and have been out for a little while and gotten okay with the dynamic of their licensed architect, but they do something else. Absolutely love it. And they are so happy they went through that struggle. And so I know you're going through the struggle on adjusting and everything. But knowing that all of them made it through to the other side when they took a step towards a direction towards something they were passionate about and love more. Like I know I just released Jennifer Keegan. She's with GAF, and she's architecturally trained. She's not licensed, but she even said, I love my job. And for somebody to just say that sentence, I don't hear that within architecture that often in that statement. But I have other professionals. I had a facilities person here locally that works in healthcare, Steve, and he pivoted into the owner side. He always starts his introductions with, I'm an architect. And then he explains the rest of the stuff on what he actually does, because he had that, I'm an architect, I got my license, like, this is who I am, but this is what I'm doing as my job.
Right.
And so those are some people, but I know I've had other professionals. A friend of mine that I actually went to elementary school with and went to college with for architecture, she just left being on the construction side to do flower design for weddings. And
hell yeah.
It was that like faster pace. It's not as fast as graphic design. You still have to think through it, and it's complicated. But now she's like, how do I make this more sustainable? Because it's actually very unsustainable with live flowers and what you need to hold structures together. It's very toxic. So she's like, how can I bring that sustainability lens I've learned in school and in the construction world, and how can I bring it into weddings and flower design?
Wow,
and so
that is so cool.
I'm like, that's awesome. And it's just like that architecture education is what gave her that lens to open up her own business and start to try to figure out solutions and work through that process. But I feel like if she didn't have the architecture education, she wouldn't have like thought of it maybe as much.
No, that's so cool. And I love that she did that. I applaud her for doing that. And what was I going to say about, you can do a lot of things outside of architecture, as a career, but I think it's important to note too, within architecture, there's a need for all different types of skills and talents. And it's like, I think in school we're taught that the designer is like the most valued in architecture. At least in my experience it was. But it's like the profession needs those spec writers. They need the code, people who love code and thrive on that. My husband does. And I'm like, wow, like that
Oh, you can have that.
Yeah, you can. And like, but that's what's so cool is like, I think that's the perception of architecture is like, oh, we just do design. But like, there's so much more to it. And there's so many opportunities for careers within architecture too. That's not just design. So I wanted to share that too, because you don't have to leave the profession to kind of find your niche and what you're passionate about. Not at all. You can in the profession too. And, kind of decide what works best for you.
Yeah. Because I know I'm more tagged as a technical architect, which I am more technical, but the human side I care about as well. So I don't do as much design stuff. But that doesn't mean I don't want to be part of the conversation. It's like, sure, you can have a different design lead. That's perfectly fine. But I don't want to be just
Right.
detailing your designs. Like, I want to be part of the conversation to come through as a team. But I'm perfectly fine that you get the final say on it. But I get final say on how details are drawn and how we communicate our design to the contractor. So it's, you got to find your little niche and what works.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you say, you're interested in that people aspect. And I think that's such a huge role as an architect and in this profession. I had this thought of, this is kind of off topic, but I worked in retail for my first job. And it's like, that taught me so much about just communication and like talking with people and like being able to sell things. And, it like what seemed like a job that wouldn't, you wouldn't relate to in the future so much. It really helped me build really life like fundamental skills. And
Definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the 3 clips I pulled out. Again, that was number 67, Nikita Morell, where she does copy for architects, and episode number 17 with Alyce Anderson, who was superintendent that pivoted over to the marketing side and proposals. And then episode number 32 with Liz Sydnor, and she is a multiple disciplinary designer and architect that helps with branding, visioning, and website design. So all different aspects that come together that are more visionary than just the projects we build together. So I hope you learned a little bit about marketing and got some tips from these 3 professionals, and feel free to reach out to any of them if you've got any questions that you could use for your firm. I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.